The teacups were still warm. The almond cookies I baked last night sat untouched on the plate. It was 8 p.m., the time Larry usually came home. But this time, he wouldn't. I stared at the front door for longer than I want to admit, hoping I might hear his key in the lock. But there was only silence. The kind that sinks deep when you know something is gone forever. My name is Lauren Williams. For 16 years, I thought I had the kind of marriage other people wished for. Larry was calm, successful, and made everything feel steady when he walked into a room. He never yelled. He was never late. He brought me flowers on Mondays, wore neat shirts, and never let me worry about money. We didn't have children. Life just worked between us, like two puzzle pieces that fit. But what I didn't know was that something was missing in that puzzle. One piece was hidden in a place I was never allowed to see. Larry died on a Saturday. They said it was a heart attack. I remember the doctor's face, kind, practiced, and distant. Massive heart failure, he said. It was quick. I nodded like I understood, like it helped. But it didn't. Not when you've lost the one person who you thought really knew you. The funeral felt like a dream. People in black, kind words, and strangers telling me how great Larry was. I held on to Helen, my best friend since college. She kept handing me water I didn't drink and food I couldn't eat. Then my sister Olivia came. Her perfume was too strong. Her hug lasted too long. That's when something in me changed. "I'm so sorry, sis," she said, her voice too smooth. Larry was like a brother to me. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the way she looked at me, it wasn't sadness. Not at all. While she poured herself a drink in my kitchen, she said, "Hey, I know this isn't the best time, but Larry loaned me some money. I was hoping to sort that out now that you're taken care of." I stared at her. "What money?" I asked. She blinked, then smiled like I was being silly. "Oh, I guess he never told you." Something in me felt tight. I couldn't sleep that night. I walked around the house, touching the furniture like it might give me answers. The bookshelves, the shiny floors, the wedding photo in a frame, it all felt like it belonged to someone else. That's when I saw them. Larry's keys, still sitting on the hallway table. I picked them up and there it was. The key he never let me use. It looked different from the others. The one for his garage. I had asked about it once, years ago. "There's nothing special in there," he said with a smile. "Just tools and grease. You wouldn't like it." I didn't ask again. I never pushed. That was how our marriage worked. Simple, quiet, and full of places I wasn't supposed to go. But now, I had nothing left to lose. The next morning, I drove to the garage. It was in an old part of town, behind some falling-apart buildings with rusted roofs and weeds growing through the broken pavement. Not the kind of place you'd think Larry would keep anything. But he came here every Saturday. Every single week. I never asked why. The metal door was heavier than I thought. The key made a loud sound as it turned, and I stood there for a second, scared of what I might see inside. It smelled like dust and oil. I reached for the light switch and stopped. It wasn't a garage. There were no tools, no boxes, no car parts. It looked like a secret room built for someone living a double life. I stepped inside slowly. The lights above flickered and lit up the room with a cold glow. The walls were completely covered. Photos, news articles, hand-drawn charts, and travel maps. One wall had rows and rows of printed pictures, all pinned up carefully. In every single photo, Larry was there. But it wasn't the Larry I knew. In these pictures, he didn't wear his neat suits. He wasn't polished and proper. He looked totally different, wearing jeans, casual shirts, and messy hair. Relaxed. Almost like a stranger. His face looked softer in the photos. He didn't seem as serious. And in almost every picture, he was standing next to the same woman. She was beautiful, at least 11 years younger than me, with dark hair and sharp, smart eyes. They looked close, too close. Her hand was on his arm, and he was smiling at her in a way I hadn't seen in years. One photo showed them at the beach. Another at a ski lodge. One was from a candlelit dinner. Some had dates written on the back in handwriting I knew was his. 8 years ago. 6. 4. One was from just a few months ago, September 2023. That one stopped me. On that same day, I had been at home, cooking his favorite dinner, waiting for him to come back from what he said was a client meeting. But now I was staring at a photo of him sitting next to that woman and a man who looked to be in his early 30s. They were all smiling, like a happy family. On the back of the photo, Larry had written, Pamela and Frank. September 2023. My knees went weak. I grabbed the metal desk in the middle of the room to steady myself. Then I saw the papers. Stacks of files. Bank records, company papers, letters from foreign companies, and tax forms that didn't match anything I knew about his work. In one folder, I found a medical report. My eyes went straight to the top. Crescent Heart Institute. It was dated less than 3 months ago. I saw Larry's full name, then the diagnosis: ischemic heart disease. Stage 3. High risk of heart attack. He knew. He knew he was dying. And instead of telling me, instead of warning me or preparing me, he spent his last days building a secret life, with another woman, another home, and another family. Because that young man in the photo had to be their son. My stomach twisted. 16 years. I stood by his side for 16 years. And now the man I buried wasn't really my husband. He was someone I didn't know at all. A stranger. A stranger. That's what he was. A stranger who looked me in the eye the night before he died, handed me a small velvet box with a sapphire necklace inside, kissed my cheek, and said, "You're the only one for me." I backed away toward the door. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, and my thoughts were spinning. What was I supposed to do with all of this? Who was I now? A widow. Yes, but whose widow? That's when I heard something. Footsteps. Soft, careful, like someone didn't want to be noticed. I turned around fast, my heart pounding in my chest. And there he was, the young man from the photo. Same dark hair. Same strong jawline. Same sharp, unreadable eyes. When he spoke, his voice was steady, but I could barely hear him over the rush in my ears. "Lauren Williams?" he asked. I didn't answer. "I thought you might come here," he said, stepping inside slowly. "I'm Frank Smith. Larry Williams was my father." Just like that, it felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. I don't even remember what I said first. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just stood there, holding onto the desk like it was the only thing keeping me from falling. Frank walked closer, moving carefully, like he knew how fragile this was. I looked at him, not just at his face, but into it, searching. And there it was. His eyes. They were Larry's. That same deep, quiet look that said more than words ever could. "You're really his son," I whispered. "Yes," Frank said, without pause. "And I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this." "How long have you known about me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "My whole life," he said, calm and honest. He didn't tell me much. Only that he was married. That you didn't know about me. He kept us apart. My mom, Pamela, respected that. She never wanted to cause problems. But after she died last year, things changed. She was gone too. Just like Larry. I sat down in the old chair by the desk. My legs wouldn't hold me up anymore. "Why are you here?" I asked. "Why today?" Frank reached into his backpack and took out a folded piece of paper, yellow around the edges. He held it out to me. I hesitated, then took it. "It's a draft of a will," he said. "It's not finished, not official. My dad gave it to me 3 weeks before he died. He said the final version would go to you. But this was just in case." I opened the paper. And there it was. Larry's handwriting was there on the page, steady and familiar, just like the notes he used to leave me on birthdays or at dinner. It wasn't signed by a lawyer, just quick writing dividing up his things. He mentioned Frank. He also wrote about a company I had never heard of before, Mercury South Holdings. Then one more line stood out. Access to remaining documents kept in office vault. Code linked to personal item gifted to V. I froze. Personal item gifted to me. The necklace. The sapphire necklace he gave me 3 nights before he died. It wasn't just a gift, it was a key. I touched my collarbone out of habit, but the necklace wasn't there. I had left it at home in its box. It had felt too heavy to wear. Now it felt even heavier. What is Mercury South Holdings? I asked, still looking at the paper. Frank took a deep breath. One of his private companies. It's not public. It doesn't show up in records. He used it to move money between countries. After my mom died, he added, I started looking into it. There were transfers I couldn't explain. Offshore accounts with my name on them, but I didn't open them. I think he was trying to set something up. For you. For me. For both of us. My mouth went dry. Why? Because he knew he didn't have much time, Frank said quietly. And because he didn't trust the people he worked with. I looked up. What people? Frank's face grew serious. He never gave names. Just said that if something happened to him, someone might come looking for answers, for control, for what he left behind. I leaned back in the chair, thoughts racing. A second vault. A secret company. A necklace that might hold a code. And a man I had loved for 16 years who had built a life I never knew about. You think there's more? I asked. That the will, the files, the photos, that's just the start? Frank nodded. I think he left clues behind. Not just for us to find, but to keep us safe. I stood up slowly. My legs were still shaky. I looked around the room one last time. It no longer felt like a memorial. It felt like evidence. And a warning. I need to go home, I said softly. I need that necklace. Can I come with you? Frank asked. If you'll let me. I paused, then nodded. Because whether I liked it or not, this was now our story. But I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. I needed time to think, to breathe. So I called Helen. 25 minutes later, I was sitting on her couch, holding a warm mug of tea. I wasn't drinking it. The sapphire necklace sat on the table between us like a ticking bomb. Helen didn't ask any questions. She never did. Not until I was ready. And when I finally was, I told her everything about the garage, the photos, Frank, and the will. She didn't say, I told you so. She just whispered, I'm so sorry, and reached for my hand. But I wasn't ready to cry. I wasn't ready to fall apart. I needed answers. I needed someone to blame. So I drove to Olivia's condo. It was in a fancy new building on the north side of town, the kind with underground parking, gate codes, and a front desk. Strange for someone who always said she was broke. As the elevator went up, I could feel my anger growing. Olivia opened the door barefoot, wearing silk pajamas and holding a glass of wine. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair done like she was expecting someone. Well, if it isn't my grieving sister, she said with a smug smile. Come to check out the widow's leftovers? Cut it out, Olivia, I snapped. We need to talk. I pushed past her into the living room. That's when I saw the photo. Her and Larry. Laughing. Holding glasses of champagne. The date in the corner made my stomach twist 6 years ago. What is this? I asked, pointing at the frame. Olivia walked over slowly and took a long sip of wine. Oh, that? A company holiday party. You were too tired to come, remember? Larry wanted me to go with him. She said it like it was no big deal. Like drinking champagne with my husband while I stayed home folding laundry was completely normal. We always got along so well, she added casually. I turned to face her. How well, exactly? Her smile faded. I know about Pamela, I said. I know about Frank, the garage, the fake company, the will. I know everything. So, if there's more, tell me now. Olivia's eyes narrowed. She walked to her bar cart, filled her glass again, and spoke quietly. Fine. You want the truth. She set her glass down and placed a hand on her stomach. I'm pregnant, she said. And it's Larry's. I didn't move. I couldn't speak. My mind just went blank. 11 weeks, she went on. I found out a week before he died. He knew. He said he'd take care of everything. He even told me he was going to leave Pamela. I froze. You were still seeing him after Pamela died? Olivia gave a small shrug. She was never supposed to last. I was always the one who stayed. I felt like I wasn't even in my own body. The walls, the couch, the low hum of the fridge. It all faded away. You slept with my husband, I whispered. Olivia shrugged again. Don't act so shocked. You had the perfect life. The nice house. The dinners at 8 o'clock. While I was barely getting by, working jobs that went nowhere, always being compared to you. Like I was some broken version of the daughter Mom actually wanted. She looked up at me then, and her eyes were sharp. You were his routine. I was his escape. I slapped her before I even knew I had moved. Her head snapped to the side, and her wine glass shattered on the floor. She didn't cry.
She didn't yell.
She just smiled. There she is.
The real Lauren, she said.
Not the perfect little wife. Just a woman who finally knows her life was a lie. I turned away, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice quieter now. Because you never would have believed me, she said. You always thought I was jealous. And maybe I was.
But this wasn't about you.
It was about me finally getting something for myself. I shook my head. You didn't just take something. You took everything. She stepped closer. Her face was hard to read. Say what you want. But the baby growing inside me? He or she is your family whether you like it or not. My throat felt tight. I wanted to scream, throw something, turn back time. But instead, I said, I'll follow what Larry wrote in his will. Not for you, for the baby. The baby didn't choose any of this. Olivia blinked. Her voice softened a little. You mean that? I don't know what I mean, I whispered. But I do know this. I have to leave. I walked toward the door, not even caring about the broken glass crunching under my shoes. My hand shook as I reached for the handle. She asked something about what Larry would have wanted, but I didn't answer. Because honestly, I didn't know anymore. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't face the clean dinner table, the untouched bed, or the silence. Instead, I went back to Helen's, holding the sapphire necklace in my hand like it might burn right through me. She didn't ask where I had been. She just opened the door, looked at my face, and said, You need sleep. But I couldn't sleep. Not when it felt like everything inside me was falling apart. The next morning, Frank picked me up. Helen came too, she insisted. You're not going into your husband's secret vault alone, she said, tossing her coat over her shoulder. Larry's office was in a tall building downtown. He always called it a satellite space when I asked. A quiet place for meetings, he'd said. I had never seen it before. But Frank had a key card. I'm listed as a co-owner, he said, swiping us through security. The receptionist barely looked at us. Larry had built a life so secret, it never needed explaining. The elevator ride felt endless. When we reached the 17th floor, Frank led us into a glass-walled office. It was cold and modern, with clean lines and sharp corners. No pictures of me. No memories. Just gray walls, sleek furniture, and the faint smell of cologne I didn't recognize. Frank pointed to a large abstract painting behind the desk. The safe is behind that. I reached into my bag and took out the necklace. My fingers found the small clasp. I turned it to the left.
Click.
A small hidden compartment popped open on the back of the sapphire pendant. Inside was a thin metal plate, about the size of a SIM card. Numbers were carved along one side. Frank carefully took it and slid it into the keypad on the safe. There was a low beep, and then the safe door unlocked. Inside were piles of papers, a sleek black flash drive, a small wooden box, and one silver key with a tag that read, Bank Safe Deposit, Federal Trust. Frank grabbed the documents first, contracts, money transfers, financial reports. Some of these names are foreign banks, he said. He wasn't just hiding money. He was moving it out of the country. Fast. I picked up the flash drive, but didn't plug it in. Not yet. Then I opened the wooden box. Inside was a ring. Simple gold, with a small diamond. I gasped. It wasn't my ring. Inside the band was an engraving. And always. Not V. Not me. And for Pamela. Oh my God, Helen whispered beside me. Frank looked away, his jaw tight. He bought her a ring. I said, my voice barely there. He was going to propose. Or maybe he already did. I couldn't move. I couldn't cry. I couldn't even speak. Because right there, in the cold, silent office of my dead husband, I finally saw the truth I had tried not to face. He loved her. Maybe he loved me too, in his own way. But with her, it was different. She got the real version of him. The one who smiled in pictures, took vacations, and laughed. And me? I got what was left. The performance. The well-dressed husband who showed up for dinner at 8 o'clock, brought roses on Mondays, and hid everything behind locked doors. Then Frank handed me a letter. It was folded neatly. My name was written on the front. I opened it with shaking hands. Lauren, if you're reading this, I'm gone.
I'm sorry.
I never had the courage to tell you the truth, to say out loud what I should have said years ago. I was selfish. I built 2 lives because I couldn't give up either. And in the end, it cost me everything. I loved you. I know that probably feels empty now. Maybe it always was. But I loved you in the only way I knew how. I wanted you to have peace, to be safe. That's why I left you the papers, the access, the truth. Do whatever you need. Burn it. Bury it. Tell the world. Larry, it's your choice now. Forgive me if you can. If not, I understand. Larry. I stared at the letter until the words began to blur. Then I handed it to Helen. She read it quietly, then passed it to Frank. No one said a word. What was there to say? The man we all thought we knew had broken apart like glass. Now all we could do was figure out what to do with the broken pieces. We left the office in silence. Not a calm silence, just the kind that comes when there's nothing left to say. Helen drove. Frank sat beside me. I stared out the window, watching Brunswick pass by in soft gray shades of autumn. My husband had lived a life I never saw. Now we were holding the pieces, and we didn't know who else might be watching. That night, I tried to sleep on Helen's pull-out couch.
My phone rang.
Unknown number. Lauren Williams, a man's voice said. Yes, I answered, already tense. This is Patrick Duffy. I used to work with your husband. My stomach sank. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, he said, his voice calm like still water. The documents from the safe. Some of them are about international accounts I helped set up. I think we should meet. I'm not meeting anyone, I said quickly. You will, he replied. Because the others Larry worked with, they're not as polite as I am. They won't ask. He hung up. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding. In the morning, I told Frank. His jaw tightened, and he began pacing. He called me too, he said. But there's more. He handed me a small slip of paper. Someone else contacted me last night. Aaron Paul. He says he's the original source of the money Larry moved. Then he added, he said if we don't return everything by the end of the week, there will be consequences. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't need to. Frank reached into his bag and pulled out the silver key from the safe. We still have the deposit box, he said. Whatever's inside might explain who really owns what. I looked at him. My voice was shaky. Do we really want to open another box? What if it just makes things worse? Helen sat beside me and gently placed her hand on mine. Then at least you'll know, she said. Not knowing, that's what's eating you up. She was right. So we made a plan. First, we'd go to the bank. And if we still didn't understand what was going on, we'd find someone who could tell us the truth. Larry had to have left someone behind, someone who knew what he was mixed up in. A backup plan. A contact. That's when Frank spoke up. There's a name my mom mentioned once. Tyler Posey. He was Dad's old college friend. She said he was the only one who ever told Larry the truth, even when he didn't want to hear it. Do you know where he is? I asked. I think so, Frank said. Mom kept his address in a box of emergency contacts. He lived in Bluffton. So we drove. A quiet 3-hour trip, rain sliding down the windshield like fading memories. Bluffton welcomed us with old oak trees, thick air, and a stillness that only older towns seemed to hold. Tyler lived in a tall brick house covered in ivy. It looked like it came out of an old storybook. He opened the door slowly. You're Lauren, he said right away. And You must be Frank. You knew we'd come? I asked. He nodded. Larry told me, if it all falls apart, they'll come to you. Then he stepped aside. Come in. Inside, the house smelled like old books and pipe smoke. Shelves lined every wall. A polished piano sat in the corner, untouched but clean. Tyler motioned for us to sit. He left the room for a moment and came back with a sealed envelope. He left this with me, he said. He told me to open it only if both of you showed up together. I looked at Frank. He gave a small nod. I opened the envelope. Inside was a short handwritten letter and a second will. This one was different. It mentioned the child Olivia was carrying. It said 30% of Larry's offshore savings would go to the child when they turned 22. I felt the blood drain from my face. He had planned for everything, even this. And in that moment, I realized something. We were standing in the middle of a storm Larry had built piece by piece. Now we were the ones left to deal with it. I stared at the will again. Unborn child of Olivia Williams, 30% to be held in trust until age 22. It wasn't the money that shocked me. It was how carefully he had thought it all through. Even after death, Larry was still 3 steps ahead. Why name the baby but not Olivia? I asked Tyler. Because he trusted the child, Tyler said quietly. Not the mother. Frank shifted in his chair. This changes everything. It means Olivia can't touch that money. Not legally. I looked at the second will again. And if she tries? Tyler nodded toward the flash drive. Then you use that. Larry told me it holds records of every transfer, every person involved, and every crime they committed to build this. If they come after you, don't back down. Helen let out a slow breath beside me. You have something they don't, she said. Leverage. For the first time since Larry died, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the woman who had been lied to, cheated on, and left behind. I felt like the one holding the map, and that gave me power. Frank leaned forward. Lauren, I think it's time we stop just reacting. We need to act before Patrick or Paul does. I nodded slowly. We go to the bank. We drove back to Brunswick before noon. The Federal Trust building sat between a law office and an old historic site. It looked plain, like the kind of place you'd walk past without ever noticing, until you needed it. Helen stayed in the car. Text me if it gets weird, she said. And if they won't let you in, cry. No one says no to a crying woman at a bank. Frank smiled. I didn't. Inside, the vault manager looked at the silver key, checked my ID, and raised an eyebrow. It's been years since this box was opened, he said. It's registered under a corporate name, Mercury South Holdings. He led us downstairs, through several locked doors and thick walls of concrete. The air grew colder. It was quiet. Then we were alone with the box. He handed me gloves. Standard procedure, he said. We'll give you privacy. The door shut behind us. My hand hovered over the lock. Ready? Frank asked. No, I said, but I did it anyway. The key turned easily. The box slid out. No cash. No fake passports. No secret phones. No bundles of unmarked bills. Just a manila folder. And a photo. The photo showed Larry, Frank, and Patrick Duffy standing in front of a black SUV, arms crossed, laughing. Behind them stood Aaron Paul. I stared at it for a long time. They weren't just business partners, I said. They were a team. Frank opened the folder. Inside were pages of signed deals, fake company records, and payments. One document had bold red writing at the top, Paul, blackmail insurance. This wasn't just information. It was a weapon. Larry kept proof, I whispered, of everything. In that moment, I understood. He hadn't just left me with a mess. He had left me a way to fight back. And now, I had to decide what to do with it. We didn't go home. We went to see a lawyer, Adam Driver. He had handled my father's estate years ago. He was honest, quiet, and didn't like drama. I told him everything, well, almost everything. Not the affair. Not Olivia. Just the parts that mattered for the law. The documents, the threats, the secret accounts. He didn't flinch. Do you want to press charges? He asked. No, I said. I want protection. He nodded. Then we'll make copies of everything. Digital, printed. Stored in 3 separate places. 1 copy here, 1 with you, and 1 with someone not connected to either of us, Adam said. I know the perfect person, Helen said, giving a serious smile. We spent hours scanning everything. Larry had kept careful records, names, dates, bank transfers, fake bills. This wasn't just shady business. It was a full-on crime operation, reaching across countries. And with Larry gone, they probably thought all the proof disappeared. They were wrong. By the end of the day, Adam wrote a short, strong letter. I added 1 line at the bottom in my own handwriting. Try me, VC. We sent it to Patrick Duffy's office by courier. He called 20 minutes later. You think you're clever? He said, angry. You're in over your head. No, I said calmly. You are. Because my next call is to the IRS. And after that, Interpol. There was silence. Then he laughed. Okay, he said. What do you want? Nothing, I said. Just for you to stop. No more calls, no threats, no surprise visits. If you touch me, or anyone I care about, the whole file goes public. Every name. Every signature. You don't want that kind of trouble, he said. I already have that kind of trouble, I replied. The difference is I'm not scared anymore. He hung up. 3 hours later, Aaron Paul called. His tone was smooth, polite, like someone used to talking his way out of trouble. Lauren, he said like we were old friends. I've heard about what you found. I think we got off on the wrong foot. There is no foot, I said. Just your name on dozens of illegal transfers. He gave a soft laugh. All just hypotheticals, of course. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, I know you think you can control this, but here's the thing, Mr. Paul. I have nothing left. No reputation to protect. No company to save. And that makes me very dangerous. He didn't respond. I ended the call. That night, Frank and I sat on Helen's porch. The flash drive was in his pocket. A copy of the folder was buried in a planter behind us. Maybe it was paranoid, but after being lied to by the person I trusted most, paranoia felt like survival. I didn't know he was capable of this, Frank said softly. My mom always said he was complicated. I thought she meant sad, not corrupt. He was both, I said. And maybe worse. I looked up at the stars. Cold. Still. Unchanging. We're not done yet, I said. Frank turned to me. What do you mean? The flash drive, I said. It was small, black, and plain, like it had nothing to say unless you asked the right way. We didn't open it that night. Or the next morning. It took me 3 days. 3 days to get ready for whatever truth was still waiting. For 3 days, I practiced how I might react, like if I rehearsed enough, the pain of betrayal wouldn't hit so hard. Frank sat next to me on the couch. Helen brought tea, again. No one said a word as I plugged in the flash drive. One folder showed up. It was named for Lauren. Inside was a single video, dated just 11 days before Larry died. My fingers hovered over the file. Then I clicked. The screen was black for a moment, then flickered on. It was Larry, but not the polished, smiling man from wedding photos. Not the calm face I'd seen every night at dinner. This Larry looked tired. His eyes were sunken, his shirt wrinkled, like he hadn't slept in days. He leaned forward. Lauren, he said, if you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. Or maybe I ran out of time. He sighed and rubbed his face. There's no easy way to say this, so I'll just say it. You were never the one I needed to hide things from. You were the one I wanted to protect. But I waited too long. And now, everything is catching up to me. He paused. There's someone you need to be careful with. Someone you trust more than you should. My heart slowed. He looked straight into the camera. It's Olivia. The room went still. She wasn't just someone I made a mistake with, he said. It wasn't that simple. She planned this. From the very start. The pregnancy, it wasn't an accident. The night I told her I couldn't do this anymore, she changed. She said if I left her, she'd expose everything. The money. The fake accounts. Everything I buried to protect you. He leaned in closer. I think she killed Pamela. I couldn't breathe. I can't prove it, Larry said. But the timing, it was too perfect. Pamela had just packed her bags. She told me she booked a one-way flight to Porto. Then the crash. One car. No witnesses. They said the brakes failed. But she had the car serviced the day before. His voice shook. Olivia knew she was pregnant. Pamela didn't. That changed everything. He looked into the camera again. They said it was an accident. No foul play. But Olivia knew. And Pamela didn't. Helen covered her mouth. Frank's hands curled into fists. I tried to fix it, Larry said. I moved the money. I made copies. I made sure if something happened to me, you'd have everything you need. I'm sorry I caused so much pain before I did the right thing. He looked down, then back at the camera. I was weak. But you're not. And if you want to walk away from all this, do it. Take what's yours. Leave the rest behind.
He paused.
But if you decide to fight back, don't do it alone. The screen froze. Then it went black. I sat there frozen. It felt like hours. Larry knew. He knew what Olivia was capable of. He knew what was coming. And still, he tried to control the story, even after death. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was fear. But now he had given me the truth. And it was my turn to decide what to do with it. Olivia didn't know I had seen the video. Not when I invited her to brunch. Not when I hugged her at the door and told her I missed her. Told her we should talk again like real sisters. She smiled like someone who thought she had already won. She wore a soft blue dress that showed her baby bump. He kicks when I drink orange juice, she said with a laugh, rubbing her stomach. I smiled too, but not with my eyes. We sat on Helen's porch. Frank stayed inside. Helen brought us sweet tea, then gave us space. I'm glad you called, Olivia said, folding her hands in her lap. I was worried you were still angry. Why would I be angry? I asked calmly. Because my husband was sleeping with my sister? Or because he left you a piece of his money? Olivia blinked. That was the first crack. She shifted in her seat. Lauren, this is hard for both of us. Larry was confused. He was torn. But he loved you.
No, I said.
He didn't love me. He pitied me. Olivia's face tightened. I leaned in closer. And he was afraid of you. She didn't say a word. Then I placed the flash drive on the table between us. Olivia's lips parted just a little. I know about the money. The lies. I know he was going to leave you. And I know what happened to Pamela. She stayed still, then said, You can't prove anything. You're right, I said. But I don't have to. She frowned. I stood up. I'm not going to court. I'm not calling the police. I'm not wasting time hoping the system will fix this. I looked her straight in the eye. I'm just going to walk away and leave you with everything you thought you wanted. The money, the child, the lies. Olivia stood too. You think that scares me? No, I said, but it will. Then I turned and walked back inside. Frank was waiting for me. Later that afternoon, I met with Adam Driver again. I gave him the flash drive, a signed statement, and one clear instruction. If anything happens to me, send it to the press. Every bit of it. After that, I went home. Back to the house I once shared with Larry. It was quiet now. Still. I walked through each room, touching the backs of chairs, the door frames, the crack in the floor we never fixed. I opened the closet, packed one suitcase, and left everything else behind. When I got to the garage, I locked the door behind me, not because I had something to hide, but because I knew I wasn't coming back. 1 week later, I got on a plane to Florida. Fresh air. A new name on the lease. A small cottage near the mountains. No more secrets. No more safes. No more pretending. Just me, Lauren Williams. Widow. Survivor. Not the woman who was lied to, but the woman who turned silence into strength.